Patrick Tiernan, Jack Colreevy from New South Wales, Douglas Havelock, Tasmania, Matthew Hudson, New South Wales, Stewart, McSweyn, Tasmania, Joshua Torley from Australian, Dylan Evans, Tasmania, Brett Robinson from Old Melburnians, Max Stevens from South Australia, Dejan Gebrselassie from Mentone, Matthew Clark, Old Zaverians, David McNeill from Old Zaverians, Brad Milosevic from New South Wales, Daniel Wallace, New Zealand, Edward Goddard, New South Wales, Riley Cox, South Australia, Jack Rayner, Western Athletics, Louis McAfee from Queensland, Bryce Anderson, New South Wales, and Andrew Buchanan from Bendigo University. Field of 21 for the 10,000 metre Australian Championship Zatopek 10. So they're off in the Zatopek 10 for 2017, and a race that is so prestigious, not just on the athletics calendar, but also the Australian sporting landscape, and the man in co-commentary has won 2 of them, Craig Mottram.
Good evening again, everybody, and what an exciting event this is going to be. Another national 10 kilometre title on the line here, and what a stellar field we've got. We've got several men in the field that have already achieved the A or the B standard. We've got several men in the field that have run under 28 minutes, and we've got, I think by my calculations, we've got 12 or more that have run well under 29 minutes. So some very good quality athletes out there, and we see early on the field starting to string out, which is a key indication that the pace is on. The A standard for the Commonwealth Games in 2018 on the Gold Coast is 27.54. The B standard 28.31. Another one of those interesting statistics, qualifying times, who knows. But we have several men in the field that have already achieved those qualifying times. And it would appear tonight that we have a couple that are keen to go out there and try and achieve that again as they go through 71 seconds for the first lap. So it looks quick, but it's actually not that quick. I think they got off the line quite slowly through the first 200, and they're starting to stretch it out a little bit now. They'll settle into their rhythm. They'll be looking for anywhere between 67, 68 second pace, I would imagine, to get them down around that 28 and a half minute mark, which is going to put them in range for those qualifying times.
So the leader in the initial stages, Edward Goddard from New South Wales, ahead of Bryce Anderson from New South Wales in second position as they hunt down the back section. Stewart McSweyn from Tasmania sits in third. Can I ask you, Craig, the conditions tonight suitable for 10,000 metre running?
Absolutely suitable. I met, I didn't meet, but I know or have known for many years one of Australia's greatest distance runners, who unfortunately is no longer with us, Ron Clark, said to me one day before the Zatopek, one of the first times I won it, he said, Craig, I know it's windy, but it's a headwind one way and it's a tailwind the other, so it equals itself out. So it's actually pretty good out there. Temperature's not too warm. The wind is a little blustery, but look, it's not a problem for the Seagulls on the infield. So I think conditions are pretty good as the boys string themselves out into single file. Key players here, obviously, Stewie McSweyn sitting in third. Brett Robinson behind him, more commonly known for the 5K, in great shape, has been competing a little bit over the half marathon to build up a bit of strength, I would imagine, has been in really good nick. And then Paddy Tiernan behind him, sitting in fifth at the moment, the big tall figure. He's one of Australia's brightest young talents. When I say young talents, he's in his mid-20s, but has spent a fair bit of time over in the US at Villanova, has had some huge success over there, and has got his 5K time down around that 13:10 mark, and his 10K time 27:29 at Palo Alto last year. So he's certainly one of the men that has the qualifier, but is also certainly one of the men that I would imagine will have that ambition of a 10K title here tonight.
Yeah, real US college star, but of course we're claiming him completely as our own now, joining the Melbourne Track Club earlier in the season as they come down now after 3 laps or so. And out clear at the moment is Bryce Anderson from New South Wales, leading from Edward Goddard in second in the initial stages of the Zatopek. Then it's Matthew Hudson from New South Wales in third place. Craig, moving up Brett Robinson from Old Melburnians too. As
they make their way through 3:22 to go. One we haven't mentioned yet, Dave McNeill. Dave McNeill has won this a few times in the past. They can going for number 3 tonight, which would be outstanding. He's been training here in Melbourne. I see him at Wattle Park most Saturdays running the hills out there near Burwood. He is also a prodigy that head over to the US. He was in Flagstaff, Arizona for a number of years. and has made his way back to Australia and has been super successful off the back of his college career, representing Australia multiple times in this event, obviously world cross country as well, and he'll certainly be looking, I would think, for that third national 10K title tonight, which would be a huge achievement, and obviously that qualification and selection for the Commonwealth Games next year. A lot of depth in this field. It's going to be a cracking race as they move through, gone through 1K, coming up to 4 laps now with 21 to go. Nice and steady at the front. Brett Robinson's looking eager to push on. They're just rotating the lead a little bit, having a bit of a look around. McSweyn, he doesn't want to be at the front at this point, I wouldn't imagine. He's just quite happy to follow. And you see Patrick Tiernan wearing number 2 on his hip. He will just float along, as like Eloise did in the girls' 10K race, but he would obviously be hoping for a top spot on the podium. And be nice and relaxed at this point in the race, I would think. Pace is certainly not flying, nice and comfortable for everyone in the field.
And Craig, what about their preparation in the last 48 hours? Because yesterday was just blistering and quite muggy today. Does that change your preparation at all?
Not really. They would have been looking at the weather probably from a week out, maybe even 10 days out, getting the log weather forecast. Most of the guys would have spent the day indoors. Some, obviously, the interstate ones would have been travelling. But spending most of the time on the plane or in the car, whatever, the weather conditions are pretty controlled. And once they got to their hotel or their accommodation, they would have been indoors, focusing on hydration. So the sports drinks, electrolytes, some might take carbohydrate, protein. They'd be certainly doing that in between their sessions on a weekly basis. A lot of these guys would be running upwards of 160 kilometres a week to prepare for an event like this. Obviously, this being the focus for those that want the 10K spot next year, and for many others, this would be an event that they're using for a fitness test or a fitness base to project them, or to propel them rather, into good form later in the season as we move through the new year and into the Athletics Australia selection races and trials in February on the Gold Coast. So someone like a Brett Robinson who's sitting in third place there, he'd be just nice and relaxed. He obviously want to win the national title, but maybe he's going for the 10K. I haven't spoken to him about it, but I would think the 5K is probably more for him. And those guys have got another event next week in Geelong over 5K, where some of the other boys will be looking to qualify. So we might actually find that some of the Melbourne Track Club athletes out here tonight are actually assisting those focusing on the 10, and then they might reverse their roles next week and assist those focusing on the 5. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next 15 laps or so.
McSweyn sits in second place, Robinson in third behind Goddard. It's the 1, 2, 3 in the early stages of the Zatopek 10, and we'll try and give you a bit of an idea of where some of the major players could be sitting here in the first 5 or 6 laps. Currently sitting in fourth.
That would be Patrick Tiernan.
Yep.
Patrick Tiernan sitting in fourth place, just moving up onto the shoulder of Brett. Sitting in front of Brett is Stewart McSweyn, and then sitting a couple back in about 6th or 7th at the moment is Dave McNeill. Again, he'll just sit in there on the rails. You don't want to run outside of lane 1. Every lap, if you're in lane 2, it's 7 metres further a lap, times that by 25. And what's the math on that, Tim? A lot of extra metres that you don't have to do. So sitting on the inside of lane 1 is where you want to be, as the boys are stretched out on the back straight, probably over about 30 or 40 metres, which to me indicates that the pace is quite steady.
Jack Rayner sits in 5th at the moment. Bryce Anderson is in 6th at this stage, as they continue their journey off the back, where Goddard leads from in second position in the Zatopek, and just happy to be up there on the pace as well. After sitting 3rd or 4th, and now just happy to lob behind the leader is McSweyn.
No reason to do any work at this point in time. I think the pace is steady enough. They'll be just sitting there nice and relaxed, trying to think about something else, to be quite honest. At this point, you don't want to look up. If you can look up and you've got under 10 laps to go, that's a great 10K race. You're very happy with that. And this is what happened to me a few years ago when I was doing 10K. I looked up after what I thought was 15 and I'd only done 5. And I still had 20 to go, so that was a bit of a battle. So it's a bit of a mind game, this 10K. It's obviously very different to your 15s and your 5s, which is where a lot of these boys have come up from. So they've got to get used to that consistent effort over 30 minutes of running, which is tough, which is very challenging. And we saw in the women's race the top 2 worthy marathon runners that stepped down onto the track and showed their strength over the last 10 laps. And in this event here in particular, Stewart McSweyn, more known for your 5K, stepping up obviously to run the 10. Brett Robinson the same. Paddy Tiernan obviously very strong over both. As we've mentioned already, spent many years in Villanova training over there under the beautiful guidance of Marcus O'Sullivan, who runs the ATHS track and field program in Villanova. Australia has quite a strong history of sending athletes over there and then coming back in great shape. And the boys just rolling around pretty steady, easy, comfortable pace at the moment, looking at around that 29.10. 29.10, gentlemen. So if that's not a nudge to get going, I don't know what is, but they're just rolling comfortably, obviously not looking for those qualifying times. The B standard, just to reiterate again, 28.31 for the B and 27.54 for the A standard. So they are... Yeah, they're a fair bit off them, but we saw this in the women's race, and they negative split. They picked the pace up in the second half, and they can make up a lot of time. So that 28.31 definitely not out of the equation at the moment, but they would be looking for a 13.30, 13.40 pace for the second half to get down to those time, which is serious running in any man's business.
And just interesting to see them just feel out the first couple of laps, trying to work out where they're going to sit. When they're at the starting line, do you tend to look at the stronger athletes and think, I'm going to follow him?
They may have. I mean, we know the stronger athletes. They know who they are. Melbourne Track Club obviously got a huge, strong contingent in this race. But what's interesting is the pace isn't quick and it's single file, which to me means no one's got any intent to run quick tonight. They're just in there doing as little as they can, and then they're going to save themselves for the last couple of laps. If we saw that big group at the front, everybody's eager to push the pace on, then it might be a different story. But the fact they're in single file, Stewie McSweyn in second, Brett in third, Paddy in fourth, Jack in fifth, and then we've got Dave McNeill in sixth. That's Melbourne Track Club, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. So they are obviously the strong group out there tonight. They would have trained like this week in and week out for a number of years. I know many of the boys have been at Falls Creek preparing obviously for this, but also for what comes here in Australia in a couple of months from now. So they're in great shape. They're dedicated to this. They're 100% focused on it. It's their career. It's their livelihood at the moment for that top 5 or 6 runners out there, as it is for many of the other guys out there. We've got Brad Milosevic, I think, who's moving up, just closing the gaps. The pace seems to be picking up a little bit. You start to see the gaps open just a little, which indicates there's either a surge or someone's making an intent, a purpose to run a little bit quicker each lap, and you'll see those gaps open. And the ones, if you're wanting to look for the boys that are struggling, you'll see the gaps open, they don't close. Obviously, the guys that are feeling good, they'll just work their way up and close those gaps as they go. So, yeah, it's certainly playing out pretty steady at the moment, with no serious contenders putting their hand up to show their cards at the moment.
So we have Jack Rayner in 5th position at the moment, McNeill sitting in 6th place as they come down the straight, and then behind McNeill it's Anderson, and a little move on the outside from Gebrselassie there, Craig.
Yeah, Dijon, he's been in good form actually, coached by Sean Williams here in Melbourne. He won the City to Sea, I believe it is, a couple of weeks ago. Actually, sorry, he was second, I think, to Liam Adams, the City to Sea a couple of weeks ago, in great shape. He's very aggressive traditionally, so he ran the 5K state titles here a few weeks ago and went out very aggressively from the start with intent to run around that 13.45, 13.50 mark. Fell a little bit short of that, but he's making his way on the back straight beautifully around the outside. He's gone past Paddy Tiernan, moved up onto the shoulder of Brett Robinson, up onto Stewie McSweyn, and then he'll slot himself into second there. He may even take the lead. So he's obviously been working with Sean on a race plan tonight to make it quite aggressive once they get through the first 10K. We've got 2 to go before we come up to the 5K split. And I would imagine from that point on, Dijon, as he moves to the front now, will make it quite aggressive, and we might see some of those gaps start to open up a little bit more.
We'll have a good look at these lap times here at Craig as Gebrselassie goes to the lead. Goddard, McSweyn, and then Robinson in 4th place as the Zatopek 10 for 2017 takes shape. And Tiernan is sitting in 5th position at the moment. Plenty of distance in the legs, a multiple cross-country champion. Of course, joined the Melbourne Track Club under Marcus O'Sullivan this year and has the PB of 29.23 at the Worlds, but had an interesting World Championships, and really the 5,000 metre final was the achievement for Tiernan, getting there, chasing the great Mo Farah earlier in the year. Still plenty to achieve, though, for the 23-year-old.
And what an experience that would have been, having the honour of running with Mo Farah at the Olympic Games in Rio would have been a lot of fun. But I would imagine the thing that's exciting most of these guys, as it was with the women, and I'm sure the juniors, the 3K de Castella, we saw some of those boys in there will obviously have aspirations to run and represent Australia in coming years, as with the junior 3K for women as well. These boys get the opportunity to represent Australia on the Gold Coast in a couple of months. So for me, when I was competing, that was certainly huge motivation. I have no doubt these guys here tonight will have come here very nervous, very anxious, wondering what might happen. Control the controllables, we say. So some of these boys will be just biding their time. Paddy Tiernan in particular, I would imagine, is just waiting. He will have his instructions. He will be just following. 71 seconds as I get the split on that lap, which is very, very comfortable for these guys. That's looking at around your 29.30, 29.35 pace, just under 3-minute Ks. 29.35, as I pointed out here. 72s gives you your 30 on the dot. 71, obviously, take a second off that. 25 laps, 29.35. Thank you very much, Tim. Geelong Grammar Education doing a great job. So the boys, it's now starting to stretch out a little bit. Gaps starting to open, which is a little bit surprising at this pace, but it must be that they are surging out there. It's deceptive sitting back up here behind the glass. When you're out there and the pace is surging, that can do a lot of damage to athletes that are not as strong and not as prepared for this type of running.
Riley Cox, as they came past us moments ago, was one of those surges, putting a little bit extra into that last lap. Goddard just pinging there in that 100-metre section and is back in the lead from McSweyn in second position, Robinson in third. Tiernan in fourth place looks comfortable. Then McNeill and then Cox, as I mentioned. Then it's Gebrselassie underneath of Rayner. So Gebrselassie, just a stumble there. Little stumble, caught a heel and almost went on the inside of the track, Gebrselassie. So a little moment there.
Yeah, and that indicates that the pace is not super hot. The boys are jostling for positions. Another 70-second lap there. So again, not huge injection of pace, but just a little, just enough to open it up. Gebrselassie obviously stepping on the inside. That's entirely fine. You can take a couple of steps on the inside if it's not your fault. There'll be no issues on that side. And was it last year Mo Farah fell over at the Olympics, got up and still won in the 10, so it can be done. He didn't quite go down, so he's still a chance. The precedent has been set. But the boys obviously nice and relaxed, finding their strong rhythm. This, for many of those guys, would be like a tempo, a Saturday tempo at the moment, this pace. Some of them would be running 29.30 down at Yarra Flats on a Saturday morning. So I would imagine Stewie McSweyn sitting in second there would just be thrilled with this. He hasn't had to do a thing. He's just been sitting there following. No one's put any pressure on him. Brett Robinson's just sitting in third. It's just a training session. No one's rotated any turns at the front. Nice and relaxed. Dave McNeill's moved up just to sit in behind Paddy Tiernan there. Jack Rayner moving up on the inside of Dijan Gebrselassie to make it. Again, Melbourne Track Club taking 4 or 5 of the top 6 spots. Nice and relaxed. Nice rhythm. And they've got 11 laps to go. I would imagine once they come around the next time, I don't want to predict it, but I would think once they get into those single digits, we will start to see some moves happening.
So with about 4,000 metres to go, this is developing into quite an intriguing end of the night where it's been a relaxed tempo at best. Goddard leads, McSweyn second, Robinson third, Tiernan fourth. Rayner is just poised behind them as well. Gebrselassie is currently sitting 7th on the outside and is looking poised to make a move in a moment. Cox is underneath of him as they come into the straight. But still Goddard leading from McSweyn, Robinson, Tiernan. Then McNeill, 5th the outside. Rayner in the black, 6th the inside. But as Craig mentioned, the Melbourne Track Club colours are prominent here. The blue and pink as they come down now and heading towards that single-digit mark as Craig was talking about. And no lift in the tempo as yet.
No, another 70-odd second lap, that one. So just nice and relaxed. Just going through with 10 to go. That is an indicator that the race is about to get underway. I would imagine the boys are just starting to think about what they're going to do. They would have sat down and had a chat with their coach prior to this with a bit of a strategy. And this would be playing out just beautifully for those boys, I would imagine, at the front. One we haven't mentioned, Josh Torley, who's he's 18 years old, actually ran 14, 15, 21 at Sydney last week, just missing qualification for the World Junior Championships in Finland in the 5K, who's in the second pack there, just making a move around the outside, the one in the bright orange singlet, the bright orange shoes. At least he looks the part, and he's going really well out there, obviously taking that second pack through. Looking to actually step up and potentially run a marathon at some point in the next 12 months, which will be really interesting and a huge step for an 18-year-old. So good on him. He's certainly having a crack out there, and this will be a big step up for him, and he will certainly enjoy the experience and certainly, no doubt, learn a lot in the process.
A little bit of jostling in this front pack. Milosevic just made a bit of a move and brushed into Gebrselassie. Cox also saw that move and improves up to 5th place. Also Buchanan's in this main group as they leave the straight. And Hudson's also, Matthew Hudson from New South Wales is last of that main group, which is now 11 runners. So it's Goddard in front. Goddard leads from McSweyn second, Robinson, Tiernan, and a move on the outside from Milosevic, improves to third. Cox is sixth the inside, then McNeill, Rayner, a gap, Gebrselassie, and then towards the back is Hudson and Buchanan in that group.
As Milosevic makes his way to the front, Ken Green would have spoken to Brad before this in the warm-up area and said, Ken Green, the distance runner for Athletics Australia, the high-performance distance coach rather, not runner, used to be. Certainly not a runner anymore. He would have spoken to Brad out there as the sprinklers actually on over the high jump area as they come into the home straight, which would probably be quite refreshing for some of those boys. Maybe Brad organised that beforehand, but he will certainly put a little injection into the pace here as they make their way up to 8 to go. 8 to go, so 3.4 kilometres to go for these guys, or 3.2 rather for these guys to go. Brad will certainly be looking to just squeeze this on. He's certainly not one to hold back. Followed closely by Paddy Tiernan. Stewie McSweyn's about to move up into the shoulder of Paddy. Those boys will just be marking these moves. Patrick does not need to do a thing. He will just sit there and wait. He has a huge turn of speed over the last couple of laps, and I would imagine he will be licking his lips at this. Brad will do his best at the front, as he is right now, to try and run some of the sting out of those legs and come away with a good time. But I think having Paddy on his shoulder will certainly make this a tough task.
So we're getting towards the 7-lap mark. And Craig, what are you making of this?
68-second lap. There you go. So the pace has stepped up 2 seconds per lap. So Brad's just knocked a 68-second lap there. Not a huge turn of speed, not a huge injection of pace. That's about the pace they need to be running to look for qualification time. So this, again, should still be comfortable. But at this point in the race, with 18 laps in the legs, any change of pace makes it hard. So Brad, obviously, with his marathon background and strength in the legs from hitting the road for 42k, is certainly looking to do a little bit of damage here. But again, I think Dave McNeill's just moving up onto the back of Brett there in 6th place, looking very ominous. Again, looking for his 3rd national title over this distance, 3rd national Zatopek crown, which would be an amazing achievement. So plenty to run for with 7 to go.
So it is Milosevic in front of Tiernan second. Goddard is hanging tough third the inside. McSweyn fourth. And then it's McNeill and Robinson together. Then Rayner and then Cox. And then a gap to Buchanan, who is at the end of that group as they continue their journey along the back. So is this a real statement here, Craig Tiernan? Just happy to sit second the outside and basically dictate here?
I think so. I mean, he's a quality field. I mean, there's a quality athlete, rather. There's a lot of them in this field, but this is certainly his event, as it is Dave McNeill. So although they train together on a daily basis, they spend time up at Falls Creek living together, there's a pecking order that these boys would have in training as well, I'd imagine, and they certainly want to stamp their authority on that today. And someone like a Brett Robinson, who's an interesting one at this distance, obviously stepping up. He's probably been the number 1 5k runner in that group for a while. Is he going to be the number 1 10k runner? What's Dave McNeill going to think about it? Paddy Tiernan, obviously starting to show his hand, spending more time in Australia at the Melbourne Track Club environment. So certainly very interesting event to happen over the last 5 or 6 laps here. But we spoke about Josh Torley a few minutes ago. He's trying to qualify here for the World Junior Championships over 10k in Finland. The qualifying time he needs is 30:47.5. He is currently well under that time. So Josh Torley coming through the finish line here, sitting in second in the orange, the bright orange, wearing number 7 on his hip. 30:47.5 is the time he needs. We're certainly going to watch that very closely because he has rattled the cages with the 5k a couple of weeks ago, just missed it by 0.2 of a second, and would certainly love to knock that time off here and earn his ticket on the plane to Finland.
I notice that head rocking around a little bit. Is that his usual pattern, or is he just starting to feel the pinch?
Yeah, well, he's 19 laps into a 10k. He'd be feeling the pinch, certainly, but he is a bit of a rocker and roller. He's certainly head down on the back straight there as he makes another surge. So he's not the most beautiful of runners, and I say that with all respect. He's an aggressive young man, and he goes out there and he has a crack. I'm getting heckled here in the box for that comment, but that's okay. I'm sure he won't mind. He knows that, but he's a very strong young man, and he certainly ran brilliantly in Sydney last week actually it was, and he's certainly on track for that World Junior qualifier today. As the leaders go through with 5 to go, it's still Brad Milosevic on the front. Paddy Tiernan, again, covering everything, looking $1 million. And Stewie McSweyn just starting to move up. They'll be getting anxious at this point inside 2K. They'll be starting to think, who's going to go? When's it going to happen? and how am I going to cover it, and what are my legs feeling like?
Well, there's plenty to play for here as now Tiernan goes to the lead. Is this the move? Goddard went into second position, and McSweyn straight away saw the move and is alert to that. As we've mentioned, he has sauntered along with them as well, so there hasn't been that many tickets spent by McSweyn. Robinson to third, so that's interesting. So a little bit of a manoeuvre there, Craig, and now it's going to develop, as you'd expect with 5 out.
Yeah, I mean, they would have had instructions. They would have known this was coming, I'd imagine, at some point in time inside the last 5 laps. Dave McNeill just missed the move a little bit, caught a little bit behind. I'd imagine he'll make his way up onto the back of Brett Robinson. But Paddy Tiernan, I'm going to get a clock on this next lap because it wouldn't surprise me if around that 61, 62 second mark. Has certainly upped the ante, upped the speed here. Brett Robinson just starting to feel a little bit of the pinch. He's 21 laps in, so again, in a bit of unfamiliar territory for him. But Stewie McSweyn, I tell you, he looks great, just following Paddy Tiernan very closely as they move down the back straight, opening up the stride. Very strong, very hard running here. They'll be looking for a long, consistent push all the way to the finish. I'd imagine their coach would have said to them something like, I want to see the last mile in under 4:20. Something like that, if I know him at all. I would imagine those are the instructions, and they'll be out on the track trying to drill that into this field. So Paddy Tiernan would be set the challenge, I would think, sub 4:20 for the last 4 laps. Let's see how he goes as he comes through. I reckon he's on about 64 second pace at the moment.
Well, Tim Crosby's got the stopwatch ready. Tiernan looks comfortable, but McSweyn, he's made a real effort to just sit on the heels of Tiernan, and both of them look pretty comfortable as they come down in front of us with 3 laps to go, and we're about to get the clock on this. This will tell us a bit.
62.56 for that 400, so they're looking at about, well, what's that, 4:10 for the last 4 laps if they maintain that pace. That's 12:55 pace for 5K if they were to continue to do that, as Paddy surges again, going past the 1500 mark closely by Stewart McSweyn in second. So they are upping the ante, these guys. That is some serious running with 3 laps coming up to 3.5 laps to go.
So Tiernan just holding McSweyn at this point. And that's a next split. The A and B times of the Com Games are well out of reach, but as Craig mentioned, that's not what they're thinking about here tonight.
This will be about pride, this one. Obviously with Paddy trying to run the legs off Stewie, and then obviously not forgetting those in 3rd and 4th place. Brett Robinson just coming around into the home straight now as they come up to 2 to go. Dave McNeill hasn't given up the fight for a medal here at the Zatopek. He'll work his way up onto the back of Brett, and Brett's in a tough spot here because he's obviously going to struggle to get onto these front 2. But what's he going to do? Is he going to sit and wait for Dave to catch up and then follow him, or is he going to try to stay away? Is Dave going to move straight past? They are on track. A 61.79 for that one. So there's a 62.5, 61.79, 3:04 for that, or 2:04 rather, for those 2 laps. So for an 800, 2:04 split, I'd be pretty happy with that right now. So these guys are certainly moving and picking up the pace towards the finish.
Now, real race for 3rd as well. So we've got a couple of intriguing contests late in the piece here in the Zatopek. Tiernan leading McSweyn off the back section, and then it's Robinson trying to hold off the opposition for a bronze as they just work their way through the traffic coming into the straight. Give them your encouragement. We've got some absolute elite running in front of you here.
And you've got the best of Australian middle distance senior running, just passing the best of Australian junior running at the moment. We've got 2 guys at the front looking to represent Australia at the Commonwealth Games in a couple of months, and then the one they've just passed, Josh Chorley, hoping to represent Australia at the World Champs. As they come and receive the bell, I'll hand over to you to bring them home, Nat.
Well, what a terrific finish it's going to be. So it is Tiernan leading, McSweyn just off the inside now, up to the shoulder of Tiernan. And if Tiernan's going to come away with the Zatopek, he's going to have to work for it. Can McSweyn surge down the back now? So with about 250 metres to go, Tiernan leads. McSweyn still about a couple of metres away. He's been just looking around a little bit. Tiernan looking focused down the back section. All to play for here. The Australian 10,000 metre championship. Now Tiernan looks to let down with 200 metres to go. Getting the encouragement from the crowd on the outside of the track. Just getting past a bit of traffic here. McSweyn is going to try and keep it for one last surge into the straight. McSweyn getting closer. Tiernan trying to hold him. McSweyn's got past him, and McSweyn's going to come away and win the Zatopek. What a run. He's going to sprout wings late and storm away to win it from Tiernan in second. And let's have a look at the race for third. McNeill has overpowered Robinson, Craig.
Fantastic running from those two at the front. Great running from Dave McNeill. Well done, buddy. An awesome run. Third place in the national title. What a fantastic race that was. Brett Robinson and Jack Rayner fight out the places for fourth and fifth. Jack just coming up on the outside of Brett. Is he going to hold him off? That one was certainly for honour amongst the group there. Split for you for the last mile of that race. 4:07.76, outstanding running. Not going to get much better than that anywhere in the world. And Glenn Turner has just pointed out it is a Victorian Championship also. So lots to run for tonight. Well done to Stewie McSweyn, Paddy Tiernan and Dave McNeill in top three places over the line. Outstanding running.
And here is coming down the straight Daniel Wallace from New Zealand. And Wallace receiving the bell. And now let's just focus for a moment, Craig, on the young man coming into the straight. As we having some looks at some shots of McSweyn. He's just fired right up after winning the Zatopek. But here comes Tawley.
I'm going to dive in over the top of your Nat, if that's okay, because Josh Tawley coming up to the finish line. 30:47.5 is the mark for him to qualify. 29:59 does Tawley run here at Lakeside at the Zatopek 10. That will be a qualifier for the World Championships, or World Junior Championships rather, in Finland next year. Well done, mate. He just missed it last week in Sydney over 5. Very hard to do. Come back a week later and have a crack at another event. That is an outstanding run from an 18-year-old boy, or 18-year-old young man, I should say, down from New South Wales. What a fantastic result. Well done.